well, we have 11 o'clock, and because we have so much to cover today, I want to make sure that we are allowing enough time to cover it. So thank you everyone for joining us today, and welcome to Healthy Eats for Healthy Beats webinar series. Today's presentation is the facts on fat. And so we'll be talking about fats and heart health. And afterwards, we're going to have a live food demonstration. And you're welcome to stay on after that to ask questions, but we're going to ask that you hold all questions. Well, you can type your questions in the chat box and we'll keep track of them, but we're not going to answer the questions until the end of today's session. And so before we start, we just want to make sure that everyone continues to have their microphones muted. This is going to help prevent any background noise during the presentation, and please make sure your cameras are turned off so that we have a strong bandwidth throughout today's session. And again, just please use the chat box to type in any questions, and we'll keep track of those and answer them at the end. Now, for those that may not know, the University of Illinois Extension is a flagship outreach effort of the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. We offer research-based educational programs to residents in Illinois in all of our 102 counties and far beyond. And so just hearing from people where people are at, you can see that we are going well beyond the borders of Illinois. Well, my name is Diane Reinhold, and I'm going to be serving as your moderator today. I'm a University of Illinois Extension nutrition and wellness educator in the northwest corner of Illinois, and I serve Joe Davis, Stevenson, and Winnebago counties, so at the tippy top of the state there. We have Caitlin Mellendorf, who is a registered dietitian and a nutrition and wellness educator that will be joining us as our presenter, and she serves DeWitt, Macon, and Piatt counties in central Illinois. Her work focuses on helping community members gain the knowledge and skills and tools to live a healthier and more nutritious lifestyle. This includes teaching educational programs and answering questions about heart disease, diabetes, food safety, food preservation, and healthy cooking. Lisa Peterson is joining us, and she'll be demonstrating a simple recipe in the second half of our presentation. And she is in West Central Illinois, covering Christian, Jersey, Macoupin, and Montgomery counties. Her interests include using social media and technology to promote food safety and nutrition education, as well as preparing and preserving local foods, preventing and delaying chronic disease through diet management, and encouraging individuals to embrace the preparation of nutritious meals while at home. All right, so I'm gonna turn the mic over to Caitlin.
Good morning, everyone. So we're going to start off with what the functions of fats are for us. So at mealtime, fats provide unique flavors to our dishes. So butter has its own flavors, sesame oil has its own flavors. Other types of fats will add flavors to our meals, so they make them very enjoyable. Fats also help in fullness. Fat is one of our nutrients that digests fairly slowly. And in doing so, it helps us keep fuller for longer. So if you have a meal that has really no fat in it, you may be hungry within a couple of hours. Whereas if you had some fat with that meal, that may take you much longer through your morning or through your afternoon or evening. Fats are also very important in absorbing our fat-soluble vitamins, vitamins A, D, E, and K, as well as our fat-based phytonutrients like lutein or lycopene. Phytonutrients are not necessary for just general nutritional health, but what we see in the research is that these are helpful in disease prevention. And we see them in a lot of our plant foods. And so these are really important to include just for the goal of disease prevention. And then fats also have a really important role in building our body. So they make up cell walls, they help protect organs, they provide insulation for our body. So even underneath your skin, so if you think about that, your hands right now, just underneath your skin, you have a little layer of fat, and that helps provide warmth for you, at least for those of us, not so much right now maybe, but last week, especially in Illinois when it was very, very cold, that probably helped us keep warm, just a little bit extra warm. And then fats are also important in producing hormones. When it comes to fat, we're going to talk very briefly about two kind of trees, two branches of this tree that I've given. And Diane, can you advance once more? Perfect. So starting on the left side of our tree, we have saturated fats, which tend to come from animal-based foods. So cuts of meat, you may see marbling of fat throughout that cut of meat. Some things like pork or beef roast may have a cover fat. So you see this kind of thick layer of fat over the top side of a roast, as well as things like butter. And then any foods that would be made with those ingredients will include pastries or cheese that would include extra saturated fat. And then trans fat is a type of saturated fat that we encourage folks to really just get rid of as much as we can in the diet because of impacts of heart health that I'll talk about in a bit. The other side of our tree are called unsaturated fats, and these tend to come from plant-based foods, so avocado, nuts and seeds, oils. The exception to that plant-only type of fat is seafood or fish are sources of unsaturated fats. The dietary guidelines for Americans recommends that our goal is about 20 to 35% of our daily calories coming from fat. In terms of saturated fat, the goal is less than 10%. So that might be about a third to half of your daily fat intake. And then trans fats, we just limit these as much as possible. They have a tendency, as well as saturated fats, to raise the risk of heart disease, particularly of raising blood cholesterol. The dietary guidelines don't make a recommendation for the amount of saturated fat, but the goal is that the other portion of our daily fat intake comes from unsaturated fats, and really trying to use unsaturated fats as much as possible in our daily food choices. So in terms of making some swaps between saturated fat to unsaturated fat, some examples might be, instead of doing cream cheese on your bagel, maybe sometimes you swap it for peanut butter or even hummus. You could also swap, instead of cooking meat in butter, maybe you saute it in oil. And then if you are maybe entertaining and instead of sour cream dip for an event, maybe another day try guacamole. And the reason that we talk about fats in our daily food choices is because fats impact our blood cholesterol, which is a measure of heart health and heart disease. And we won't go into a whole lot of detail today, just for time, on the numbers here on the screen, but check with your medical care provider if you haven't had a blood test for cholesterol in a while. It may be worth scheduling one. But the goal is that by choosing more unsaturated fats, we're able to improve our blood cholesterol numbers. So you may have heard of LDL, which is our quote unquote bad cholesterol. By choosing saturated fats, we tend to raise this LDL number. And with HDL, which is our quote unquote good cholesterol, eating less total fat and increasing the amount of unsaturated fat can help raise that HDL number. And if you're looking for recipes or ideas, of course, Illinois Extension, and for those of you that are outside of Illinois today, check your local extension cooperative extension service for recipes and ideas. But I like these ones from Health and Human Services. So Million Hearts has some good information on heart disease as well as some recipes. And then the other resource is from the National Heart, Lung, and Blood Institute. They have a nice recipe website as well. And it also covers recipes from other cultures, which is really great. So if you're looking for more Hispanic cooking or African-American cooking, these are great ones to try. And now we are going to transition over to Lisa, who's going to start our live food demo. And she has an egg roll recipe, and it's going to explain an air fryer. So we have a popular kitchen appliance for us today.
Yeah, thank you, Caitlin. So today with our focus on fat, I thought we'd prepare an Asian cuisine favorite, the egg rolls. So typically egg rolls are deep fat fried, which ups, of course, those calories and that not so heart healthy saturated fat that Caitlin just talked about. Additionally, like she said, we are going to be using an air fryer. Air fryers use about 80% less fat compared to traditional deep fat frying, although this doesn't give us free reign to eat all the fried food we want, but it is a healthier alternative for those who do consistently eat that fried food. So these also, and I will, in the recipe you're going to receive, I do give the option of doing it in the oven. So if you don't have an air fryer, you can still make this using a 425-degree oven. Alrighty, so Diane's going to stop sharing the screen and we're going to switch to my lovely table, but make sure that your setting is on speaker view, which is up in that corner like my slide shows. So this demo is center stage. We're going to do a little flap. Okay, and then we're going to. Okay, so, and if you want to put in the chat box, make sure that you're seeing my screen in my hands. So to make sure that I am center stage here. So anytime we're working here, the first thing you're going to do whenever cooking is making sure, or in the kitchen, is washing your hands with that soap and water. So always wash them really, really well. Also, all the vegetables we're using today have been washed before we go ahead and cook with them. So I am using a non-stick, and you can kind of hear it, electric skillet today. You can see I've kind of started out already, but this can also be done on a stovetop. But after you've washed your hands, the first thing you're going to want to do is you're going to brown about 4 ounces or 1/4 of a pound of ground pork. Now, as you can see, I've kind of already started on these. This is pretty brown, but one thing I do want to note is color is not an indicator of safety. So you do need to use a food thermometer to make sure that your pork gets to 160 degrees. So I'm going to bust out my food thermometer here, my lovely food thermometer, so everyone can see it. And I want ground pork, again, it's ground. So this is where you do want to get it to 160 when you're cooking with it. And this one has been simmering for, usually if you're on medium high heat, it's only going to take 2 to 3 minutes because we're not working with a lot of pork. But I'm going to check it in a few different spots. We got 160 there, and I'll do another bigger piece here. There we go, just to make sure that we're getting it to 160. Oh yeah, that's at 170. So another thing to keep in mind that we are working with, like I said, ground pork. If you're doing like a pork tenderloin or other pork products, you're only gonna have to get to 145. This has actually been a recent change in the last probably 10 years or so, but that's something to keep in mind. The ground pork we're using is also 90, I believe it's about 98% lean. So that makes also a big difference with cutting down on that fat. And as you can see, I've basically browned it already. I put it on medium high heat and started it 2 to 3 minutes. It usually takes to get it there. Another fun fact is pork tenderloin is about as lean as skinless chicken breast. So there's another option. Another little fun fact I want to share about our pork is we are working with ground pork. So a lot of times when you see recipes, you want to make sure that it is ground pork and not ground pork sausage. The difference is that sausage is going to have extra seasoning in it, and they use the loin fat in there, so it's going to be higher in fat. So if you do want to use it, that's fine. Just be well aware that you are going to be having a little bit higher in fat and a little bit higher in sodium, as opposed to using just ground pork. You can also leave this out. If you don't want to use pork, you can use ground chicken or ground turkey or vegetable, just leave it as a veggie roll. So that's completely up to you. So we already temp this. We know we're at 160. So the next thing we're going to add is we're going to add 2 cloves. I'm going to get it up to the camera so you can see it. 2 cloves of minced garlic. So, and it's up to you. Sometimes you can buy, well, you can buy minced garlic at the grocery store. I like to mince mine, mainly because you get a little bit more flavor out of it when you mince it yourself from the cloves. But we're going to turn it, again, we're keeping it on medium high heat. Turn this up just a little bit so we're closer to that medium high. And you're going to saute this for roughly about 30 seconds with a teaspoon, there it is, of our, that's hard to see, it's grated ginger. So I've got another teaspoon, it's grated ginger root. I'm going to throw that in there. And the reason why we add those two and saute them is it helps bring out flavor really well. So again, about 30 seconds or so to really bring out, and I wish you could smell this, bring out a really great flavors of our ginger and our garlic. I'm gonna mix them up. Okay. Our next step is we're gonna add the star of the show, which is our coleslaw or cabbage. So you're gonna need about 3 cups of cabbage. The 3 cups of cabbage, you wanna make sure it's washed and shredded. Another low-cost option, which is what I'm using today, that is actually coleslaw mix. The coleslaw mix, all it is ground or shredded green and red cabbage and carrots, and it's 3 cups. And again, it's low cost, it's easy, and it's another great addition. So that is our star. We're using 3 cups of it for this recipe. You're gonna add that right in. You can hear it sizzling on me. All right, the next thing we're gonna add while it sizzles is we are gonna add 2 washed green onions. So there's my green onions, and I actually use a kitchen shears to cut these up. It works really well, it's simple. We're gonna add our 2 green onions in there. Next thing we're gonna add in here is gonna be our low sodium soy sauce. So there's my, and I use about a teaspoon of it, our teaspoon of low sodium soy sauce there. I'm gonna add that on in. And if you have somebody with celiac disease, another option would be using tamari sauce. The next addition is going to be a teaspoon of one of my favorites, which is, it's hard to see, it's sesame oil, toasted sesame oil. So I'm using, again, a teaspoon. A teaspoon goes a long way. So you really don't need a lot more than that, but you sure can add it. Okay, so there's our addition. And the last thing we're going to add here is going to be a little bit of pepper. So we're going to add about there's my pepper, about a half a teaspoon of pepper. Mix it on up. And this is going to take, again, pretty short amount of time, 2 to 3 minutes. You can hear it sizzling, just to get it to wilt down with our mixture. Yeah, if there was a way I could get smell to come through Zoom, I totally would. I'm going to make everyone in my office jealous. But other things to know while this is wilting is about a half a cup of cabbage has about 45% of your daily vitamin C needs. Additionally, that purple cabbage in there is a good source of polyphenols or that antioxidant that can help prevent inflammation in your body. Cabbage is also a good source of that lutein and zeaxanthin that Caitlin had briefly talked about, which helps with eye health. Additionally, because we are working with cabbage, it is a good source of fiber and potassium. And those are 2 we talk a lot about with heart health. So then that fiber is going to help lower that cholesterol, and that potassium is going to help with blood pressure. And again, we're going to just mix it enough where it's wilted. And I said it wilts pretty fast. I am working with some high heat here. I got it to wilt down. So the next thing you're going to do, so after I've got this all wilted, is I'm going to bring in a small bowl. Well, first, before I bring in my small bowl, I'm going to turn off my heat. Just to prevent from any burning, especially if you're on the stovetop, you might move your pan to a safe, to a pad or something, or turn off your heat for sure. So I'm going to move this over, and we're going to transfer this to a small bowl. So there is my small bowl here. Be very careful when mixing this, putting this in my bowl. You can see all the colors that I'm mixing. There's quite a bit of a nice mix here. And this makes quite a bit, as you can see. And I'll talk about it a little later as well, but when it comes to those spices, so like I added ginger and garlic, those, if you want to change them, make them stronger, please feel free. That's not a big nutritional change, but some people want more ginger in there or more garlic. And that's great because again, it's not going to up the sodium in it, but it's going to add maybe a little more flavor to it if you want. Okay. So there is our small bowl filled with our new mixture. Get this out of the way. Okay. So now we're going to work with our egg rolls. So we've got our mixture on this side, and we are going to be using egg roll wrappers. So here's our egg roll wrapper. If you want to, if you don't want to use an egg roll, there are other options. One of them would be using a spring roll wrapper. Those spring roll wrappers are typically a little lower in sodium. They're made of rice or tapioca. Keep in mind, if you're going to air fry them, they're going to cook a little bit faster. The other option you can use is using phyllo dough, which is gonna be, you'll find it in the pastry section of your grocery store. But this is a great option for a flakier egg roll. So we've got our egg roll here, our wrapper. When you put it on your table, you are gonna want the point towards you. So this is one of the hardest, I always think it's the hardest part about making egg rolls is how do I wrap it properly? So I've got that end pointed towards me. And what I wanna do is I'm gonna take it one egg that's been beaten, so you can see there, and I've got a brush, and it is meant for food, but you can always use a basting brush as well. And you're gonna wanna brush that egg roll with this one beaten egg. And it's gonna create that glue. So this is what's gonna hold your egg roll together. If the egg does add a little bit more flavor to it, but if you're not crazy about using that, you can use water and that'll also create a glue. And that's another option as well. So we'll get it nice and make sure you get the ends really well, because again, that's the part that's gonna be sticking together. There we go, we'll get that on there. And now for putting it on, for how much of this should go, how much of our coleslaw mixture or cabbage mixture should go on, typically about 2 to 3 tablespoons. And it depends on how big your egg rolls are too, but typically 2 to 3 is plenty. And I'm gonna add it right to the center. So let me add some in there. Again, it smells great. And I'm only gonna add about 2 because it does fill it up pretty well. And I am using a tablespoon. And now the trick to this. So when we roll up our egg rolls, the first thing you're gonna wanna do is take that point, the center that's pointed towards you, and roll it in. And if you want, you can do the point down. I like to because it tucks it a little bit better. But that center goes first. The next part is gonna be our sides. So you're gonna roll one side towards the center, and then you're gonna roll the other side towards the center. As you can see, it looks like a little envelope here. And this is where we're gonna be as tight as we can with rolling these up. So I'm gonna roll it. There we go. With my seam side down. And there's our little egg roll. Try to move it up to the camera so you guys can see it. Kind of hard to see with the light, but I've already prepared 5 others. So you'll repeat this process a total of 6 times to make sure you use all your mixture. If you know you're not going to eat all 6, one great option is freezing them. So leave them as is. I usually put them on a baking sheet, put them in the freezer for about an hour or so they pack a little bit easier. But then putting them back into your air fryer, you only add about 2 or 3 extra minutes. But these work great too. So we're going to add them to our plate here of our other 5 that we've done. And the next step for this is going to be using that air fryer. So I am using a little bit of a bigger air fryer here, but my air fryer is actually a 6-quart air fryer. Most are somewhere between 3 and 4 quart. And those usually can fit about, I don't know, about 3 or 4 of these egg rolls in. This one does fit all 6. It's a little bit more of a beast. Keep in mind to always follow your manufacturer's instructions when we talk about using an air fryer. A lot of them don't have a preheat setting on them, but you do want to make sure that your air fryer is hot when you use it. So typically you want to air fry roughly about 2 to 3 minutes, or you want to preheat 2 to 3 minutes at 390 degrees for this recipe. So I did already preheat this one, but one thing you will need, because this is a warm air fryer, is make sure you have some tongs or something that you're able to put your egg rolls into your air fryer before. So I'm going to put these in and get mine open there. You can see as I stick it in, and I'm going to put, again, all 6 of mine should fit nicely without touching in my air fryer. There we go. And they all should be nice. And there we go. And I actually probably fit 8 in this one. But then what I'll do is before you close it, and this one I've gotten caught a couple times on, because you do want a little bit more crispiness with it, you do want to lightly, just very lightly, spray it with some type of oil. I like using extra virgin olive oil. You can also use canola oil or vegetable oil, but just very lightly. And that's going to help crispen up really nicely. And then I'll close it. And I would set my timer for 7 to 10 minutes. You do want to flip them halfway through. Typically mine can go about 7 to 8, but every air fryer is a little different. So when you check on them, do check them about 6 or 7 minutes, see how they're doing. So we don't burn them. That'd be the worst. But it's simple as that. And the beauty of our demo, I already have a finished product. And there we are. So what I did was with our finished product here, I did put a serving as 2. Your recipe is going to tell you how much is in 1. but a serving of 2 of them is roughly about 220 calories, about 5 grams or so total fat, and only 1 gram of saturated fat. So that again, that entire nutrition facts panel will be available in your handout, but go ahead and make it a meal like I did. So what I did here was I actually added a 1/2 cup of mandarin oranges. So I added some fruit in there, and I also did a 1/2 cup of brown rice. As you can see, move it up here. It is seasoned. I add a little bit of basil and cayenne pepper to my brown rice. So you get a little bit of flavor without, again, the addition of sodium. So total, this meal is roughly about 375 to 400 calories. So that's one thing to keep in mind. Alrighty, so I'm going to pass it back to Diane, who's going to wrap everything up for us.
Thank you, Caitlin. In my mind, I was smelling all of those delicious fragrances as you were cooking things up. So, all right, let's see. All right. Well, thank you so much, Lisa, for that great food demo and all of that wonderful information. And Caitlin, thank you for the wonderful heart health information. And that wraps up today's session. But before we let you go, we really would appreciate it if you would take a few minutes to fill out our evaluation. Caitlin will go ahead and place that link in the chat box. After completing the evaluation, you will automatically be redirected to the handouts. And if you haven't already done so, we really encourage you to please consider signing up for our next week's session. Our next week's webinar will be on fiber and heart health. And it'll, of course, have a food demo as well. Our sessions are all recorded, and it should be available to you within the next 48 hours. And all of our recordings are housed on our website. And that website is go.illinois.edu/nutritionwell. So again, go.illinois.edu/nutritionwell. Now, because we want to be respectful of everyone's time, and we also want to allow for time to answer questions, you're either free to leave or you can stay on as Caitlin and Lisa answer a few questions. And so for those that are leaving us, again, we want to say thank you. Otherwise, we'll go ahead and take the first question. So one of the first questions is for Lisa. Lisa, would we, when you freeze your egg rolls,
Yep.
do those need to be thawed?
No.
Or can you put them right into the freezer or into your air fryer?
Nope, they do not need to be thawed. The only thing you'll need to do, and I wouldn't suggest thawing them, is add maybe 2 to 3 minutes. I did this last week and I set it for 9 minutes rather than 7, and they cooked up perfectly. So you do not need to thaw them. Put them right into your oven or into your air fryer.
Wonderful, thank you. And for some reason, my chat box has completely disappeared and I cannot get it to come up. Caitlin, can you get the chat box to come up? Can you?
Sure. Well, while Diana's looking for her chat box, our next question is about recording. So this is, so our webinars are being recorded. And when we get those posted, because you have signed up for this, we will let you know when the recording is available and get that shared with you to your email. Let's see, next question. The evaluation link is in our chat box, so just kind of scroll through it. I've posted it twice, so hopefully it will come up sooner as you scroll through. Lisa, not our Lisa, Lisa in the chat box says that the recipe looks delicious and she is definitely going to try it. That's awesome.
Good.
Thanks for sharing.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So,
Amy asked, what's the difference between mono and polyunsaturated fat? Yeah, so just to make sure that we had enough time to get through our lesson today, I did not talk about that. So both mono and polyunsaturated fats are obviously types of unsaturated fats. The difference is in the chemical makeup of those fats. And so trying not to get too technical in terms of the chemistry, but that's the amount of single and double bonds, trying to pull into chemistry. So we tend to see more polyunsaturated fats in some types of oils compared to monounsaturated fats are, sorry, I'm flipping those around. We tend to see more monounsaturated fats in oils. We tend to see polyunsaturated fats in our nuts and seeds and our seafood. So it's just the type of fat. The recommendations are still, they're both great for heart health. So just worry about getting unsaturated fats, regardless of whether they're mono or poly.
And fun fact, our sesame oil has a mix of poly and monounsaturated fat that we use today.
And that's a great reason to share, is that usually foods will be a mix. So if you read a food label, you might notice mono and polyunsaturated fat having a product having both types of fats. They are not required to be on food labels. So you may see, you may not see them on a food label, but you may see them on some packaging. They're not currently required on our food labels. Okay, I think I just got to the bottom of my chat.
Yeah, and I actually was able to find the chat. I have no idea what had happened. So thank you for your patience. But yeah, so the question is, can I repeat where you can find the recordings of our webinars? So all of our recordings are recorded, or excuse me, are housed on our state nutrition website. And that website is go.illinois, ILLINOIS.edu/nutrition-well, and that's NUTRITIONWEL. So goillinois.edu/nutrition-well.
And if I remember right, these are also linked to our main extension YouTube page, correct?
Excuse me?
Yes, they are on our website as well.
Perfect.
Okay.
Excuse me, can I make a question really quick?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, okay. Would you mind, is there any, is there any possibility that you might type the website in the chat so I can just copy it? And also I have another question. Is there any amount of fats that we should have a day, the good fats, any amount? Those two, please. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Caitlin, did you want to answer the fat question?
Mm-hmm.
Sure. So the recommendations are about 20 to 35% of our daily fat, of our daily calories. So it will vary person to person. So for, I'm going to use the example of a 17-year-old male. He's going to be very active, have a lot of calorie needs compared to a 80-year-old female. Just the calorie difference will be much lower for that 80-year-old female compared to our 17-year-old male. But the percentage of 20 to 35% of that calorie intake is going to be helpful. And that's hard because you have to do some math and calculate it. But one recommendation might be to just make sure that you are including some source of fat at meals and snacks. So for example, if you have a traditional breakfast, so maybe the eggs and bacon, those would be sources of fat. The bacon certainly is more saturated fat. Or if you want to, avocado toast is still kind of popular. So avocado would be a source of fat. So that would be just kind of a quick trial of try and have at least one source of fat at each meal and snack to get you started. And you had asked about the direct link. So I will find that and I will post that in the chat as well.
Thank you. Again, I'm having some difficulties getting the chat.
Yeah, well, I can send it out. So I'm going to send everybody an email post and I'll make sure that's included as well. So you should get an email also with how to get to these webinars. Somebody had asked about the recording from our last one, and the handouts are also on that website as well from that last week's recording. So yeah.
And Donna made a comment that she's been using one whole egg with one egg white Yeah, that's great. I do that with yogurt. I tend to buy containers, large containers of fat-free yogurt and whole milk yogurt, and I will mix them kind of half and half. And so that helps me get some fat, but not as much. And also just flavor-wise, to me, fat-free plain yogurt is not very exciting.
I'm with you. I'm always adding blueberries and other things to it.
And actually, I do that quite a bit. We usually do breakfast for dinner at least once a week in my house. And I will do that. I will do a mix of whole eggs and egg whites. And I like the fluffiness that the egg whites give. And I know that I'm getting a little bit less fat for that meal.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Lisa and Caitlin. It was a great presentation. Thank you all for joining us today. And it looks like we've answered all of the questions. We can stay on a few more minutes if people have questions. Otherwise, we'll just we'll call it a day.
Program is Greek yogurt.
Looks like we have one
last
more
question.
question.
Yep. The question is Greek yogurt a healthy substitute for sour cream?
So that's a very good question. So Greek yogurt is a strained style of yogurt. So we drain off some of the liquid away. And so it is a thicker product, and it has a very similar texture to sour cream, has a very similar kind of sourness that you expect from sour cream. It's a good substitute, but be aware if you are buying whole milk Greek yogurt, it's going to be about the same fat content as traditional sour cream. So just be aware when you're shopping, check and see if you can buy. I have found 2% plain Greek yogurt. So if you're maybe going to cook with it or use it on tacos, I would avoid fully fat-free Greek yogurt, because if you're going to cook with it, it's not going to distribute quite well. So maybe a stroganoff recipe, that fat-free Greek yogurt is going to be a little bit grainy. So if you can find a 2% or even a whole milk Greek yogurt for that, that's great. But just be aware that we're talking about fat today. So the goal is to swap towards unsaturated fats where we can, or reduce total fat. So of course, our answers are never short when it comes to answering chat box questions, but hopefully that gives you some information when you go shopping to help you make that decision.
All right. Well, again, thank you everyone for joining us today. Have a lovely rest of your week and enjoy the sunshine.
Yes. Thank you, everyone.